Why is identity and access management so tough? That's the title of this talk. The subtitle is The CISO Project Graveyard. In 2016, my CIO called me into his office and he asked me who should take on enterprise identity and access management. And without thinking about it too long, I said, well, InfoSec should do it, because actually it made sense. I was aware of a lot of the pains that we had with regard to access management. And the funny thing is that my inside voice was a little different. I was like, man, am I going to live through this? A couple weeks later, I went to a Gartner conference and a friend of mine said, oh, you took on IAM. I got a joke for you. I'm like, all right, let's go. Bring it. And he said, how long does it take to roll out IAM? I'm like, I don't know, well, let's see. I'm kind of counting on my fingers and, milestones. He's like, no. It's 2.5 CISOs, and you're CISO number 1. I'm like, well, that sets a realistic level of expectation in my head, like I needed one more. So among CISOs and a lot of IT professionals, IAM has a bad reputation. And there's a lot of reasons why that is. And I'll relate one more story. So while I was at the same peer conference, so I was asking somebody about their experience in IAM, and they said, well, we're really hoping to do it a little better this time. And I'm like, well, what do you mean this time? And they went into the story about how they had invested a couple of years and a couple of $1 million and never gotten to stage 1 of the rollout. And now they were starting all over again. So here's one of the reasons why IAM can have a bad reputation. It's not something you just buy and check on in a few weeks or months to see how well it's gone. It's going to require your involvement. It's not just a set of tools. There are business and IT impacts that require a lot of upfront work and communication, and in a lot of cases, negotiation. There's complexity here, and there's a lot of rabbit holes that can suck your team in and chew away at your timeline and cost you extra money. Speaking of money, IAM is not cheap. There's a pretty steep upfront investment that it requires, and you're going to have to go through the analysis of which systems best fit your particular needs. And with that expense come a lot of expectations from your executive stakeholders. And this brings us to something that you're going to need to manage, and that's time. This isn't an instant-on type of implementation. I already said it's going to take weeks and months. It could take years, and I'll talk about some of the strategies for that. So we talked about some of the issues with IAM, but here's why you should do it anyway. Business agility and governance blended together. How often do you find that? Here's our opportunity as information security to make the company more efficient, to help it work faster, and blend governance into it and improve security at the same time. Cloud enablement's a big thing. Everybody's starting to implement cloud, and that results in a lot of pockets of services here and services there, and identity and access management combined all of those elements together in a cohesive, secure way. Speaking of risk, not doing this can actually put your company at more risk and cost it even more money. Things like account takeover, and as a result of phishing and other hacking techniques, can result in loss of accounts, and this can result in data breaches. But here's another key and important element, and that is poor customer service. Traditionally people would wait a week or 2 weeks, to get their account, to get signed in and start work. And if you multiply that times thousands of employees, you get an idea that there are thousands of man hours being wasted with people just sitting on their thumbs. They're not being productive. And in addition, they may have more than one login. You may find cases where people have 5, 8, 10, and 12 logins. That's a security problem. It's also an efficiency problem, and it's painful. A professional pen tester told me that, in their experience, people are getting better at patching. That's kind of a technical thing. We can get that implemented. So they're having less success, breaking into systems, because of poor patching, but they're having a whole lot more success because of access management. So there's some problems here that if we're not doing this right, there's a lot more risk that we're being exposed to. So this brings me to talking about the ways that IAM goes wrong. And I talked about complexity, but understand that as you step into this, there's kind of a technological Rubik's Cube that you're walking into. There's a lot of complexity in IAM, in the tools and that implementation, and then there's a lot of hidden complexity in our enterprises. And I'll talk about one of those, and that's technical debt. You're going to run into systems that may cause incompatibility with your product and hold up your progress, and now you're waiting for fixes in a system or an upgrade that you don't control, and now you've lost control of your timeline. The word repository, I knew it before I got into IAM, but I learned it a whole lot better as a result of IAM. There are multiple places typically in a company where people's digital identities are defined. One of those is in HR, and this should really be your master repository, because if HR doesn't know about somebody in a company, now we have some other problems. But HR should be the core central source of truth for who somebody is within the company. But you also have to understand whether the data in HR is ready for you to use. Are there consistent titles and roles defined? Are they consistent? And that consistency can kill the gains that you would make in implementation through automation. Change management is another core element, and I can't understate the importance of this. You're going to change how the business works, and even if the change is for the better, people tend to resist change because it's something different. People are already overworked and they're getting through their day, and now you're changing how things work. And this also applies in IT, because you're going to impact not only how the IT systems work, but you're going to give your IT people additional work. And most of them are already either overworked or struggling in their daily work, and now there's additional things that they have to do for you. So how to do it right? And there's no hard, fast recipe here, but the thing I'll say is you have to do your homework. Map out the current identity lifecycle process. Understand how it works. If it's fully manual, you can still create a map. Understand how much time it takes. How much time is required for somebody to become an employee, get an account, get the access they need, talk to your accounting department, for example. How long does it take not only for your accountants to get email, but to get into the actual systems that they need to do their work? And you may find that it's not only days, it could stretch out into weeks, and that's time lost. Again, back to the repositories. Understand where those repositories are, how many they are they consistent with one another, and if there's particular applications for some of them that you're going to need, which means you're going to have to really work hard with the IT stakeholders who might run those repositories. Meet with your key stakeholders. You got to sell them on the vision, right? But more than that, you have to listen to the pains that the identity and access management may be causing them. Try not to make them promises during those meetings, but definitely hear them out. People usually appreciate it when you hear and understand the issues that they encounter, and the commitment you can make is that you're going to do everything you can to make that experience better. This brings us back to the overall plan, and that's you need to establish realistic milestones. These are the key points in your implementation that'll mark your success. And if you achieve them early, you need to celebrate it. If these things are running behind, you need to clearly communicate that to all of these stakeholders. So communication is absolutely key. And so my final thoughts. Identity and access management is one of the most crucial things that the Chief Information Security Officer can either heavily influence or have a direct hand in implementing. We have a chance to merge risk management with better business service. We have a chance to create secure cloud fabrics for our companies. We have a chance to improve compliance. And we have a chance to make the business more agile. And those aren't typically opportunities that CISOs get. So enterprise identity and access management, it doesn't have to be the hill that you die on, But you need to know going into it that it's not easy. Success is going to depend on the groundwork that you do, your homework, and having a realistic plan. And if you do that, you'll be miles